Hi everyone. The first thing we're going to be doing right now is unboxing the display. We've got a whole bunch of little doodads here and I'll go over them as we get through here. So obviously a power cord. Here's our instruction manual, which doesn't really go into a whole lot of installation tips, but that's what this video is for. We have the display itself and a little plastic cover to cover it just so you don't get grease and grime all over it. One really nice feature about these digital readouts is it comes with a tool holder for R8 tooling. You can put your collets there and it bolts on right here through the same bolt that holds on the display, the swivel bolt. The arm for the digital readout is in one of the scale boxes. So this is the display end, and there's a couple of little brackets here that will bolt on either side of this, and that's actually what allows the display to swivel up and down, and then your tool rack would actually mount down there. This end gets mounted onto the machine in some way, either directly to it, or in my case, I've got a bridge port, so there's not a lot of flat surfaces, and I'm going to use a piece of angle iron and bolt it down through the lifting lug that's on the top of the RAM. That seems to be a pretty solid way of doing it, and it puts the digital readout in a pretty nice spot. Now the arm has these set screws here. There's supposed to be one in that corner too, and you can use that to level it and twist it and do all sorts of stuff. I guess if you've got a non-flat surface, that shouldn't really be an issue for me because I'm going to be using a piece of angle iron to mount this to anyway. But if you do have a non-flat surface, you can use these to just sort of shimmy it around a little bit to get the display level, and then bolt it down using this mounting hole and the one that's trapped behind the arm. Now these brackets here come in a separate little bag, and they're what's used to mount the display to the arm. And there's these 4 holes here, 2 holes for each one. Now since these are actually kind of set back into the display, you're going to need to get these onto the lug on the arm first before you attach them to here. So I would take this bolt off. You're going to need to take it off anyway in order to mount your tool rack. And this will give you the flexibility to mount this arm without having the weight of the display on it. And then from there you can get all these parts onto the display and then just drop it in, put your tool rack on, and tighten up the nut. So the kit comes with a lot of different screws, and not all of them are apparent as to where they go. So you just kind of have to mix and match and see what you've got. There's a pair of flat washers in there and a lock washer, and then this nut. So this one I think is obviously for mounting these brackets. And there's these 4 tiny socket head cap screws. I think they're 4mm. They also have flat washers that come along with them. So those are the ones that are used to mount this part to the display. The other 2 screws in this kit, I would imagine, are for mounting the arm to whatever it is, either directly to the machine or whatever, because there's 2 mounting holes for the arm. In general, I'm actually not sure if these are metric or inch, probably metric. But for all of the mounting, I went ahead and just changed out to inch size screws because that's those are the taps that I have. I don't have a lot of metric taps. So, of course, if you're in the rest of the world that uses the metric system, you've probably got metric taps galore, and feel free to use the ones that come with the kit. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up these 4 screws, but I'm going to leave this loose so that this can swivel and I can get it to where I need it to be. Just got to put those on so I don't lose them. And while I've got the display turned over, let's talk about some of the features on the back. We've got the power switch there. That's obvious. That's where the power cord goes into. You got your 3 slots for your axes, and they're labeled X, Y, and Z. Obviously, if you have a 2-axis one, it'd just be X and Y. And this is the ground. You do want to have the display grounded to the machine, otherwise a power surge could potentially fry your display, and you don't want that. It's a threaded little nut on there, and there's a hole through it, so you would feed your wire through there. get it to where it's in contact with the brass, and then tighten down the plastic nut. And then what I usually do is run the ground wire over to one of the mounting screws for the arm. The ground wire is not terribly long, and as long as it's in direct contact with the machine and can go to ground, you should be fine. So the digital readout kit did not actually come with a ground wire, so I just went to the hardware store, and this is a 14 gauge braided wire, and I got a little connector here that's going to go around one of my socket head cap screws that's holding the display arm on. The other arm's just going to stay stripped because it's going to go into the plug on the back of the digital readout display. So here we're looking at the top of my RAM, and I've got this rack that I made a few years back to hold all my collets and some other tooling and things like that. So I'm going to actually have to clear all that off. I'm still going to use the lifting eye, and I'm just going to put a piece of angle iron in between that, and I'm probably going to actually have to extend it up so that I don't interfere with any of the taller tools on here. I don't want my arm to be interfering with me being able to take those tools out of the rack. But this is the piece of angle iron I'm using. It's a pretty stout piece, 3/8 of an inch thick, I think 3 inches, 3 by 3 by 3/8 angle. You want it to be pretty sturdy because you don't want to go to push a button and have your whole arm moving around. So I've put together the bracket and the arm and everything just with some socket head cap screws, and I put the split lock washers in there to keep everything from backing off. Now again, the only reason I did this riser is so that it can clear the tool rack that I have on my on the top of my mill. You'll see that in a second. This is going to be holding down that tool rack, and I want to still be able to remove the tools that I have without hitting the arm, without having to constantly move it out of the way. Now I'm putting the arm on without the display just because it's going to be lighter, and then I'll get the display put on once it's actually mounted to the machine. So here I've got the display arm on. Great thing about this is it's also got magnets that come with it, and you can hang your print from right there. Basically I put this section on that I had assembled earlier in the video, and then I put the display and the tool rack on just to keep it a little bit lighter. And again, this whole arrangement is only so I can still retain the use of the lifting eye that's back here. If that's not a concern with you, then just do it however you want. Hopefully you'll pardon the handheld camera view, but I've got my wire in the ground spot on the back of the digital readout display. And this is just a plastic nut that comes out. There's a hole through a brass stud. You just slip the wire in there. I've got plenty of wire because I want to make sure that I don't get it pulled. So I got about 3 feet of wire. I probably could have gotten away with 2. And then you can see I've got my crimped on connector back there, just connected to one of the screws that's attaching the display arm to the base. So this will be the end of this video just on the display, and then I'll do a separate video of installing each scale on each axis, and then another one showing off some of the features and how to do linear compensation. I'll do a few different videos on the features. So that's what you can look forward to in the rest of this series. Hopefully this helps, and I'll see you next time.